Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 335.
3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. What the heck is bothering me?
The Green Bay Packers. Rich Bisaccia, Brandon McManus, Keyshawn Nixon, Matt LaFleur. Cram it in your cram hole, LaFleur. Just unbelievable, but at the same time, entirely believable. I would say I'm shocked, but this has happened so many times. How can you be? Another epic playoff collapse, meltdown, implosion, whatever word you want to put on it. That's what happened Saturday night in Chicago. And the Packers end an injury-plagued year, and we will talk about that, and that has to be a part of the season's narrative. But they end an injury-plagued year on a 5-game losing streak at the culmination of year 7 of Matt LaFleur. The big question coming out of Saturday is whether or not Matt LaFleur would stay as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. And the early reporting this morning is that, in fact, he will. That is per Adam Schefter. Nothing is done yet. Nothing's written in stone yet. And some of the language, actually, on the tweet makes me wonder if this is totally done. But I doubt you'd see Schefty or Rappaport reporting it if there was not a lot of validity to it. It does sound like they are working out a contract extension for Matt LaFleur, which now 48 hours removed from the disappointment of Saturday. And I was still feeling on Sunday like I wanted to move on. It feels like this is probably the right move for right now, but he is going to be on a short leash next year, I would think. We're going to break it all down. We're going to talk about the game, the ripple effect of that, if LaFleur is back, which is, again, not a certainty yet as we're recording this. What kind of changes can we expect on the staff? Rich Bisaccia, get out of here. Get out of here. We're going to talk about all of that. We'll touch a little bit on basketball. Hey, the Badgers had a huge win on Saturday. I thought we were going to have such a nice Saturday after the Badgers upset number 2 Michigan on the road, dealt the Wolverines their first loss. That was in the afternoon. Then the Packers will beat the Bears on the road Saturday night, and it's going to be a fantastic weekend. We'll talk a bit about that toward the end of the podcast. Bucs wrapped up their West Coast road trip 2-2. One of their best wins of the year against LA, coming out of that news we talked about on Friday about Giannis wanting to retire in Milwaukee. And then, as has been the case this year with the Bucs, they cannot just sustain any kind of success. They lose last night at Denver. Not an easy place to play, but Denver down 4 starters last night. And the Bucs dropped that one 108-104. But we'll primarily be launching into the Packers. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. Hit time! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan a smash up the middle, face into center. Here comes Gomez around third. A throw and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, and and there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leans in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul on a pinnacle ball, throws it down.
Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it.
It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
Yeah, welcome in Monday morning. We haven't had a Victory Monday in 20 years. It's been 84 years. What's the line from Titanic? It's been 84 years. We have not done a Victory podcast since the Tuesday we recorded after the Packers beat the Bears at Lambeau Field. That legitimately feels like 3 months ago. And it was over a month ago. Tuesday, December 9th is the last time we had a Victory podcast and played highlights and did all that stuff on the pod. It is just unbelievable, but again, entirely believable how this year wraps up. A 31-27 loss at the hands of the Bears. Before we dive into the debacle in Chicago, I don't know why I'm going to read this to you, but I'm going to read it to you. Because I had to read it, now you have to listen to it. I guess you don't have to listen to it. Hey, by the way, thanks for downloading the pod. Please like and subscribe if you can. I was talking about this on, I think, the HBL morning show this morning about why can't this team just lose? Just lose. 35-21. Get down a touchdown. Get down 10 points early. You're down 17, you score a touchdown, maybe they can get back in it, then you give up a touchdown, you lose by a couple of scores. Why can't that happen? Why does this have to be where you get your beating heart ripped out of your chest and shown to you every January, or I guess in some cases probably December? One of the Packer pages I follow, BGPG, Bleed Green and Gold, BGPG, I don't know. They put a lot of fun highlights up once in a while. They chronicled on Saturday night all of the ways in which we have died, and we have died in a variety of torturous ways over the years. And this one went starting after the 96 title. So Super Bowl 31, you win that. The Lombardi Trophy's coming home. World champion Green Bay Packers, Jim Irwin would say at the end of that broadcast. Then in 1997, they make the Super Bowl 32. Tie game fourth quarter. Packers, by the way, I'm pretty sure 13-point favorites heading into that Super Bowl. Tie game or a lead heading into the fourth quarter. Cough that up. That's the Elway helicopter night and the migraine for Terrell Davis. He still scores a touchdown. Gilbert Brown gasping for air at the end of that game. Then in 98, the year after that, you get Owens. You get that catch over the middle where he is rocked by two guys. Before that, you had the clear Jerry Rice fumble, but there was no replay. Then in 2001 was the Favre 6-interception game. I know we brought that up before within the context of Jordan Love and all the people that hate Jordan Love. And by the way, there were still people coming out of Saturday that were blaming Jordan Love for that loss Saturday night or putting him as a part of the blame pie. 6 interceptions, Brett Favre, 2001. And that was actually a reasonably close game, even with the 6 picks. 0-2, Mike Vick ran wild at Lambeau Field, but that at least was a game you lost 27-7. It was shocking because, like we talked about on the last podcast, they were not a team that lost at Lambeau in January. They were not a team that lost when it was below freezing, and then they just got worked. But at least that was never in doubt, really, from basically the second quarter on. Then we get 4th and 26, 0-3. 0-4, we lose a close game. That's the Randy Moss Moon game. Joe Buck, a disgusting act. 0-7, in Favre's last year, we get the Giants missing a walk-off kick at the end of regulation. You get to overtime. You get the ball to begin overtime with the old overtime rules. Favre throws a pick, and the Giants hit a walk-off field goal in Favre's last play as a Packer. 2009, Rodgers' first playoff game, 45-45, overtime thriller in Arizona. Aaron Rodgers has his head ripped off of his head, fumbles the football, return for a touchdown. That's how you lose that game. Then you win the Super Bowl. We got that one. 2011, you blow a 15-1 record in the divisional round. 2012 and 13 were both Kaepernick losses. At least, again, the 2012 one, I think you lost by 2 touchdowns, so whatever. You never really thought you were going to win that game. In 13, you lose on a last-second field goal. 2014, Seattle. 2015, you get the miracle Hail Mary from Rodgers to Jeff Janis in Arizona. You lose the coin toss. Remember, the coin didn't even flip in 2015. After that play, you go to overtime. The coin didn't even flip. You lose the coin toss. Old overtime rules. Cardinals go right down the field, score a touchdown. You lose that one in overtime. Then in 16, you got blown out. That was run the table year. 19, you kind of got blown out too. 2020, you can't capitalize on Tom Brady throwing 3 second-half interceptions. Matt LaFleur decides to kick a field goal down 31-23 on 4th down inside the 10-yard line. You never see the ball again. 21, you lose 13-10 in the division round as the 1 seed. You had a blocked field goal and a blocked punt return for a touchdown. 22 wasn't the playoffs, but you lose a close game to the Lions at home. Aaron Rodgers' final game at Lambeau Field or as a Packer. 23, you miss a field goal in the division round against San Francisco. You could have gone up 10. That would have been a wrap. Niners come down and eventually win the game. Love had that pick over the middle. And then in 2025, one of the worst, I think I read it was the worst blown lead since the 28-3 loss for the Falcons in the Super Bowl to the Patriots. That was what happened on Saturday. Up 14 in the fourth quarter, up 21-3 at halftime, up 15 in the fourth quarter, blow that game and lose. Why can't we just lose in a normal way? I'll tell you, we've had 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime, and I know they've got 4 Super Bowls overall. They've got 13 titles, Titletown, USA. The price we have had to pay, if you are my age, if you're in your mid to late 30s, early 40s, if you're in your mid-20s, if you're in your mid to late 30s, early 40s, mid-40s, whatever, the price we have had to pay for Super Bowl 31 and Super Bowl 45. I guess I'd pay it because you always just want in your lifetime to see your team win a title or win titles. So I suppose if this is the toll, then I'll pay it every time. But the amount that we have had to pay in emotional scarring with the list I just gave you, to get the Super Bowl 31 title with Favre and the Super Bowl 45 title with Aaron Rodgers. Holy moly. Price just went up. Price of the brick just went up. It's just unbelievable. Just lose a game by 10 points and have nothing weird happen and no collapses and no 18-point blown leads. If you're going to lose, just lose like a normal person, could you? That list was astounding as I read that, and I knew it. I mean, we've talked about it. We lived it. But when you see it all written down, when you see the heartbreak and you have to click see more at the bottom of a tweet, at the bottom of a post, I thought, oh, God. I'm getting a migraine just thinking about it. And add yesterday to the list. So who do you want fired? Who do you want fired here on a Monday morning? Are you still feeling like you want people fired? I want to give myself credit, by the way, and we're going to break the game down here in a second. Typically on social media, I would post within a minute or two of the game ending. I took a beat on Saturday. I was just so out of it and so bummed out, even though I had kind of accepted... I think and we talked about this on the morning show this morning, when did you think it was leaving us? When did you think it was flying away? And we had a variety of texts in. A lot of people said the miss by McManus before halftime, which I'll grant you, I did not feel great about that. I don't know that I thought that was the tremor in the Jurassic Park water yet. I didn't feel good, but still up 21-3. I feel like I started to really get some trepidation, some daunt, as Pat Murphy would say, undaunted. I felt some daunt, I believe, after the 3-and-out to open the half. And then certainly after the second 3-and-out. And then they got, one first down, then another 3-and-out. But after that first 3-and-out, where you had a chance up 21-3, you had that chance at that moment to step on their throat, to firmly get in the driver's seat. Even a field goal probably does it. You probably didn't even need a touchdown. Just get in field goal range. Although, as we saw with McAnus throughout the night on Saturday, that was no guarantee. But you punch home a 38-yard field goal, you eat up 5-6 minutes of clock, and you're up 24-3, it's over. The fact that they went 3-and-out, and they went 3-and-out in a nanosecond, less than a minute, 50 seconds. You miss a kick going into halftime. You come out with the ball, 45 seconds, you're 3-and-out, and you're kicking the ball away, and that just opens the window for Chicago. That's where I started to feel like this might be slipping on us a little bit. But that was a part of the conversation that we were having on the air this morning. But it's just hard to wrap your mind around all of the things, again, that had to go wrong in ultimately what ends up as a 31-27 loss. But when you break down the game, it's just 21-3. They could not have played a more perfect first half. Up and down the field, taking advantage of a banged-up Bears secondary, of a defense that had been awful at the end of the year. You get 3 Jordan Love touchdowns, finds Watson for the touchdown after the Bears had the ball to begin the first part of the game. They go on a decent drive, kick a field goal, 16-play drive, you're down 3-0. But the Packers respond right away. Watson, touchdown pass, 7-3. You get a stop, you get the ball back. Jaden Reed, 10-play drive, 18-yard touchdown pass. There was also a moment right before that third touchdown where I thought, are they going to blow a 4th and goal here at the 1-yard line? Where that was the drive where Watson, like Mario, leapt over a defender, fumbled in the end zone. Dobbs recovered, but because you can't advance the ball, came back to the 1. You had 1st and goal at the 1, and you couldn't get it in. 4th and goal, I thought, oh, God, this could be the moment where they start to blow it. But then they score a touchdown there. And I thought, oh, okay, they're not going to blow it. You get the 1-yard touchdown pass to Romeo Dobbs. You're up 21-3. Literally the only thing I think they did wrong in that half was on McManus. Was the missed kick, the 55-yarder, because you got another stop. Ben Johnson was out there playing Madden football, going for it on every 4th down, because he kind of felt like, and we all felt like in that first half, his defense wasn't going to be able to stop anybody. So his only hope of winning was to get in a track meet and go for it on every 4th down. You stop him on another 4th down, get the ball back with 40 seconds left, no timeouts. But you were a couple of plays away from field goal range, and they did that. And you get in line for that 55-yarder from McManus. He makes it, but they call a timeout, so that wipes it away. And then on the second attempt, you kind of had that notion of, oh, God, he's probably going to miss it. He made the first one, he misses the second one. But again, like I just said, 21-3, a nearly perfect half of football on the road. And you get the ball to begin the second half. But yes, that was that beginning part of the second half when you go 3-and-out. And it just felt like they didn't have anything behind them on that drive. There was no urgency. There was no vigor to the team at all. It was the most dead noodle, dead fish drive to begin that half. How do you kill a noodle? I don't know. A wet noodle. That's what I was looking for. The most wet noodle dead fish drive to open that half. There was no life. And you immediately then breathe life into the Bears, a team that has come back a million times this year, never feels like they're out of it. You breathe life back into the crowd with how lackluster you were on that drive. I was talking on one of the morning shows this morning. Even if on that drive, the first drive of the second half, and I know I just said you get a field goal, you get a touchdown, it's probably over, and it is. Even if you just eat up 5 minutes, you know what I mean? Even if you just get to midfield, you get a couple of first downs, you get to midfield, you just get into Bear territory, they stop you on a 3rd and 8, you have to punt the ball, but there's 9.5 minutes left. I feel like even in that scenario, you're probably going to be fine. But it's the way they called plays on that opening drive, how quickly they gave the ball back. And ultimately, you give up a field goal on that subsequent drive, and you sort of feel like you dodge a bullet. But then the offense just could not get anything going consistently. They had no response for the different blitz packages the Bears were sending, and that was the adjustment the Bears made in the second half, where they brought a lot of different exotic blitzes. We talked about on the Friday podcast some of the advantages we thought the Packers had. That one of the advantages, the biggest advantage, was how good Jordan Love is in a clean pocket and how that Bear pass rush cannot bring pressure consistently. We saw that in the first half. The Bears had to adjust in the second half, or they were going to lose 45-10. They did adjust, and then there was no counter move by Matt LaFleur. There were 2 moves in the chess game, and Matt LaFleur got checkmated somehow. And they brought a ton of blitzes from a variety of different positions. They put pressure on him. The offensive line was horrifically bad in the third quarter. I mean, if you want to watch the All-22, which I did a little bit of on Sunday, when you watch the All-22 and you see the kind of pressure and the miscommunications on the offensive line, it was a disaster class in the third quarter and the early fourth quarter. So you end up in a 21-6 game, third quarter. Fourth quarter, they get another field goal to make it 21-9, but your defense got a big stop on that drive. It just felt like you were kind of clinging to life, but you were one big drive or one touchdown away from icing it. Then the Bears get the ball back again after a quick drive. They finally score a touchdown. 7-play, 66-yard drive to make it 21-16. But I will concede that I thought on the next Packer drive, where it felt like they finally opened things up again, once it got back to 21-16, it felt like then they finally had a response. A 6-play, 54-yard drive. Love hits Matthew Golden. Golden with his best play of the year by far, bouncing off of defenders, keeping his feet, sniffing the end zone. He gets into the end zone with 6:36 left to make it 27-16. And at that juncture, I will admit, I kind of wiped my brow and said, ooh, okay, they got it back. That is the stabilizing drive, the touchdown that is going to calm the waters here a bit. And then McAnus misses the extra point, and I feel like I'm right back in the boiler because now the difference is an 11-point game or a 12-point game. I guess ultimately you ended up giving up back-to-back touchdown drives, so it didn't matter either way. But in that moment, you go from an 11-point game to a 12-point game, or you go from what could have been a 12-point game to an 11-point game. Touchdown, 2-point conversion, field goal ties it. If you just hit that extra point, they need 2 touchdowns, which, again, they got anyway. But with that touchdown and the amount of time left, even knowing what I knew from 4 weeks ago in Week 16 when they blew a 16-6 lead with under 3 minutes left, it felt like that was finally the counter you needed, and that would suck the last of their life out, and they'd be back on their heels, and it just didn't go that way. You give up a 10-play, 76-yard drive. Play of the game from the Bears' perspective was on that next drive after the Golden touchdown drive. On that next drive, the Packers had them 4th and 8. And they were, at their own 40-yard line-ish. And if you get a stop there, they go for it again. If you get a stop there, the game's over. That was where McDuffie brought pressure on Williams. He just kind of swept his ankle, but Williams released it downfield a split second before, and that was caught by Roma Dunze. I believe that was the only catch Dunze had that night. Huge catch, first down. They're inside Packer territory, inside the 35-yard line. They end up scoring a touchdown. They get the 2-point conversion, 27-24. Then the Packers go on a decent drive. I didn't love the play calling on the back end of that drive where they end up attempting the 44-yard field goal. I forget what the first play was on that last series of downs, but the second play was the touchdown shot to Luke Musgrave. I didn't love that, where you could have just run the ball again or played a short pass and milked the clock down to the 2-minute warning at least. I understand a touchdown and it's probably over, we think. So you take the chance one-on-one with your 6'4" tight end in the end zone. Didn't work out. Pass was a little short in that instance. But I didn't love the sequence of play calls on that last set of downs before they attempt the McManus 44-yard field goal, and then he misses that. That's when I knew it was over. So I started to feel, uneasy with the first 3 and out. When he pushed that 44-yarder, and I'll be honest, even if he made the 44-yarder and you made it a 6-point game, they end up scoring a touchdown anyway. I guess the difference would have been then you'd have been down 31-30, and all you would have needed was a field goal, which who knows if he could have made that in a pressure cooker situation. But that does change the calculus on that final drive where you get the ball back with 1:30 and 1 timeout. When he pushed that 44-yarder, though, 55 yards I can sort of excuse. You can't excuse the missed PAT, and then you missed the 44-yarder that could have made it 30-24. That's where I felt like, well, we're cooked. And the Bears get down the field. They score the go-ahead touchdown, 31-27. Williams to DJ Moore, blown coverage, Carrington Valentine. The only solace I had in that moment was at least there's 1:40 and you have a timeout and you have a chance for a legacy drive. Play calling on that drive was horrendous, I thought, but you also had drops. You had Jaden Reed drop that pass right on his mitts. Would have been first down inside the Bear 30-yard line with 40 seconds left. I feel like Christian Watson had a shot at that one in the end zone. Was it a play before the final play of the game? And you had to bring your third-string center at that point. It felt like that throw over the middle where it maybe sailed a little behind Watson, where if he reaches back and gets that, I think he probably gets into the end zone for the game-winning touchdown, but he missed that one, so he had some drops on that drive. And it ends up where your third-string center, who isn't even a center by trade, a low snap on that last play. LaFleur said they were trying to get a quick out to pick up an extra 7 or 8 yards, which was there with 7 seconds left. They could have done that, but then the low snap, the bobble snap, and then all of a sudden you're in scramble mode and you realize it's the last play of the game and you've got to chuck something into the end zone. That falls short and you lose 31-27. But like I said before, I do want to give myself a little bit of credit. I did give myself time after the game before I made a post on Facebook because I'm 41 years old. That's what I said to myself. I said, John, you're 41 years old. You are 41 years old. You don't have to hop on Facebook in the emotion of the moment right now and make a post. Just listen to some post game, have a cocktail or two tree cocktails. Listen to some post game, listen to some callers, sleep on it, get a couple hours of sleep, have a coffee, watch CBS Sunday Morning. Think things through a little bit, maybe go for a walk, go for a run, clear your head a little bit, listen to more post-game, and then maybe you'll have a more measured take. I did eventually post Sunday morning. I was still feeling like fire everybody. I just still felt like that's where I landed on the whole thing. But you end up losing in embarrassing fashion, pathetic fashion, 31-27. And like I texted my buddies on Sunday afternoon after I was kind of cutting up audio for Sportscast and reliving the game a little bit, trying to find some highlights you could play in there too. The wild thing about that loss is you got all the breaks. You caught all the breaks, and you still blew a 21-3 lead. When we go back to the 2014 game, so many random things had to happen in that game, and Bostic is the biggest of them all, and that one was one the Packers were in control of, where Brandon Bostic was explicitly told before he went on the field, don't touch the football. No touching. Prison rules. And he did anyway, and he botches it, and they recover it. And that's the biggest of the 10 or 13 plays that didn't go their way. But so much random stuff didn't go their way that wasn't their doing necessarily in the 2014 NFC title game in Seattle. When you look back at Saturday's game, you blew a lead that large, and basically the two biggest things that could have gone against you did not. Inexplicably, Josh Jacobs was in returning kicks when he had never done that at the professional level. And I guess the first return that he fumbled on was a good return. He got it back to the 45-yard line. That felt odd, to say the least. In that kind of a moment where things are slipping away from you, all of a sudden we're going to put our running back to return kicks when he's never done that. But he fumbles it, but you recover. You actually get that ball back. The other one was when Love panicked and had to throw it to Darian Kennard, who was the extra offensive lineman. All of a sudden, you got a big, ugly, a big, nasty number 70 running upfield with the football. It gets knocked out of his hands, goes forward 15 yards, but you're able to get it out of bounds, so you dodge a bullet there. When you go back and relitigate some of those meltdowns they had, even the game in Week 16 in Chicago, some things just didn't go their way. Some lucky breaks fumbled away from them. They blew a 21-3 lead on Saturday night, and basically every break went their way. Do you know how hard it is to do that? It's amazing. I'm not even mad. It's like eating a whole block of cheese. What's that line from Anchorman? You pooped in the refrigerator and you ate a whole block. I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. To blow that kind of a lead and then to have the major breaks ultimately fall your way is unbelievable. Oh, it all ends in a 31-27 loss at the hands of the Bears, and a season that started when you go back to August, you trade for Micah Parsons, this franchise-altering trade. 2 first-round picks, you pay him more money than any non-quarterback has ever been paid, but the jolt, the infusion of excitement in the franchise at that moment, when you already felt like that team, before Micah got there, should be a 10-11 win team, should be a team hopefully competing for a division title. Then you go out and you make this huge move to put you over the top. You dominate the Lions in week 1. You dominate the Commanders in week 2. And I know the Commanders ultimately won 5 games, but at that point we felt like they were going to be a contender. And then the rest of the year is just kind of wobbly. You get to 9-3-1, and you have the third quarter lead in Denver, and on that first play of the first drive, coming back from commercial break when you're up 24-15 with 9 minutes to go in Denver, was the bomb to Watson. It's intercepted. Watson goes down. He's out for a while, and it felt like the whole season tilted the wrong way, and they didn't win a game for the rest of the year. You lost to Denver. You lost to Chicago. Couldn't stop the run against Baltimore. Minnesota, whatever. I'm not sure how much I'm going to hold that against them, but it's a loss, and it's the 4th of 5 losses in a row that culminates with that 5th loss in a row on Saturday in Chicago in the wild card round in stunning fashion. It's just a weird year when you think of the move to get Parsons, how hot they were to begin the year. They were dealt a lot of injuries. Clearly, we'll talk more about that when we talk about LaFleur. And then to end the year at 9-8-1 ultimately with a 5-game losing streak. I didn't see that coming. When they got Parsons and started the way they started, you always have to know it's a long year. You have to know injuries are going to happen, and you just hope it's not to the key players like it was for the Packers. But I don't know that I saw that coming, where you lose the way they lost a couple of games in Chicago, 5-game losing streak, and you wrap up the year 9-8-1. That leads us to Matt LaFleur. And like I said, before we even clicked record on this podcast, I think in the 8 o'clock hour on the morning show, we had the breaking news from Adam Schefter, where he said the sides are working on a contract extension for Matt LaFleur. Nothing is done as of yet, but that is what they're working towards. And even though I tried to take some time Saturday night and not post anything on Sunday, and I still felt like fire everybody on Sunday morning when I finally made the post on Facebook, I was still feeling like everybody's fired. Matt LaFleur, Brian Gutekunst, Brandon McGannis, Keyshawn Nixon, Rashawn Gary, Rich Bisaccia twice. That's how sick I am of Rich Bisaccia and the special teams unit. I want them to fire him twice. I want them to fire him, and then I want to rehire him, then I want to fire him again in a more humiliating way. I want a double firing of Rich Bisaccia. That's how I was still feeling on Sunday. By Sunday afternoon, it did feel like, and LaFleur had a presser at 4 o'clock on Sunday, and he did not sound like a guy that was getting ready to move on or find another team or whatever. It just felt like, yeah, we're probably heading toward a contract extension. And even though I felt like you're fired on Saturday night and Sunday morning, in my heart of hearts, it did feel like they'll use injuries as an excuse, and they can. Those were significant injuries to key players. They'll use that as an excuse. They're going to stick with stability, which is something Matt LaFleur provides. They're going to stick with the guy that's been there now for 7 years. And Love gave an endorsement. I mean, I guess what do you expect them to do? But Love Saturday night, he was asked about it in his postgame presser. He endorsed him. Jacobs endorsed him. Any player who was asked about whether or not Matt LaFleur should still be the guy in the aftermath on Saturday, all of them responded with, we love Matt, we love him as the coach, and he should be the coach going forward. So even though I was feeling the firing feeling was embered up in me on Saturday night and Sunday, it did feel like, even though I feel that way, and some fans feel that way, a lot of fans feel that way, it does feel like that we are probably still going to land at a Matt LaFleur contract extension. Although as I was texting some buddies of mine, Saturday was the one scenario where I thought, they might move on. Because going into Saturday, and I talked about this on the Friday morning shows, I can't remember if we talked about it on the podcast. Going into Saturday, I did not feel like Matt LaFleur was coaching for his job. Win or lose. Win the game, move on to the divisional round, lose the game, and the season's done. I did not feel like he was coaching for his job. Unless the game plays out the way that it played out on Saturday, where you blow a 21-3 road lead to your hated rival. The way Saturday's game broke was, in my mind, the only scenario where maybe his job would be on the line. But ultimately on Sunday, by Sunday afternoon, it felt like, they're probably going to re-sign him. And now Monday morning, it feels like that is just about a certainty. They have to work out some things between today and tomorrow, but they're going to want to sew this up quickly and get this done and move on to the offseason. What is going to be interesting about it is, what is the contract going to look like? Because Matt LaFleur, it's an odd situation. Because Matt LaFleur's got this great career record, and the playoff record now is 3-6, but he's got this great regular season record. He's still super young. And as we've talked about throughout the year, as Matt LaFleur's job has been discussed, if the Packers were to move on and go find somebody else, Matt LaFleur would find a job like that. So you're in this weird spot, if you're Ed Policy, where you've got a coach with a great career winning percentage who brings stability, a good offensive mind that any other team in the NFL that has an availability would take in a heartbeat if he were available. But you're also kind of frustrated because you're not winning the close games. You're not winning the playoff games. 3 straight years as a 7 seed. Only 1 playoff win. Didn't make the Super Bowl in the twilight of Rodgers' career with a couple of MVP years. So you've got a franchise in Green Bay where he's been for 7 years where maybe you're getting a little disenchanted and you want to light a fire under him. But you've also got a situation where if he left Green Bay, he would get a boatload of money elsewhere. So we're probably staring down, not only is LaFleur going to stay on a 2 or 3 year extension, he's going to get a fairly significant raise too, which I think Packer Twitter is going to handle just beautifully. They're just going to take that in stride, no issue. You know what I mean, though? It's an odd situation where a lot of the fan base, because of the way these games have gone against good teams, close games against good teams, and playoff games, the way seasons have ended, and especially with the meltdown on Saturday, you've sort of got a franchise fan base that is disenchanted, an ownership group, myself included, that is a bit disenchanted with LaFleur. But LaFleur and his agent know if he were available, he'd get a massive deal somewhere else. So you're probably in a spot where you're going to have to give him some more money. I'll be curious what the length of the extension is. My feeling is he has 1 year left on his deal at the end of this year, and Goody does too. My feeling is they would love to just give him a 1 year tack on. That's never going to happen because of what we just went over, the resume and how quickly he'd be hired somewhere else. That is never going to fly with LaFleur or his agent. But if you had your druthers, if you're Ed Policy, my feeling is that's what he would want to do. 1 year tack on, and then he's kind of coaching for his job again next year, and you give him 1 more year with hopefully a healthy Kraft and hopefully a healthy Parsons the entire year whenever he comes back, and a healthy Love. And then we see what this team can do when they're more reasonably healthy with their key players. But that's just not going to go over. But I feel like that's what he would want to do, so you're not tied in. Now, that's not to say if you give him a 3-year contract extension, if things go tits up next year, you could still fire him. You're going to owe him more money, but that is not a problem for Green Bay. But I do feel like if they could do this the way they wanted to do it, and LaFleur had no counter-argument, and his agent had no counter-argument, my feeling is the 1 year extension, the 1 year tack-on is what they would want to do. But because of how sought-after and how coveted he would be if he were available, they're probably going to have to give him a 2 or 3 year extension. I would guess it's going to cost him between $12 and $15 million per year. Now, since it's not done yet, let's just entertain the conversation. If you are a Packer fan, would you want to move on? Are you still feeling Monday morning like you want to move on? If I had to make a decision, if I were Ed Policy, so it's 10:08 in the morning. If I'm Ed Policy and by 10:10 I have to make a decision on whether or not I'm bringing back Matt LaFleur, I think I'm probably bringing him back. Just because of the stability, because he's still a young head coach, and because maybe there is still more meat on the bone there. I guess where I'm at with Matt LaFleur is this, and I texted this to my buddies. Ed Policy and the Packer hierarchy have to figure out what they have through 7 years of Matt LaFleur. I would compare Matt LaFleur to 2 former Packer assistant coaches that went on to become head coaches, and both had levels of success, one much higher than the other in the last 10 years, or the last 5 to 7 years. My feeling is the Packers have to figure out, is Matt LaFleur Steve Mariucci, or is Matt LaFleur Andy Reid? Because through 7 years, Mariucci went to San Francisco, Reid went to Philadelphia. And through 7 years-ish, I'd have to go back and look. I think Mariucci was the head coach in San Fran for 5 years maybe before he went to Detroit for 3 bad years. And Andy Reid was in Philly for a lot longer. But after 7 years, both of them were sort of in the same spot where Mariucci is a brilliant offensive mind, Andy Reid is a brilliant offensive mind. Both come with the offensive background. The Niner offense when Mooch was there, super efficient, piled up points, but could not win close games in the playoffs. Won 11, 12, 13 games in the regular season routinely, didn't have the discipline, didn't do the small stuff in playoff games. Ultimately, he goes to Detroit. It's a mess in Detroit after 3 years, and then he goes on to NFL Network, and he's been on the pregame show on NFL Network. He's been doing TV over there ever since. Andy Reid, after one bad year in Philly, they were 11-5 his second year. And then that was the narrative with Andy Reid, too. They don't do the small things in big games. They can't win the NFC Championship game. How many years in a row did they go to the NFC Championship game? They couldn't get it done. Ultimately, he did get that franchise to one Super Bowl. They lost to New England. And in that game, some lack of discipline. Andy Reid was always notorious for very poor clock management. He should have had to play a Madden franchise, too. And he just couldn't quite get them over the top. And eventually Philly said, look, you've won a ton of games. We've won a ton of division titles. We've been to a million NFC championship games and won Super Bowl. But at this point, I feel like we have to move on. And then he goes to Kansas City. Now, look, getting a Hall of Fame quarterback dumped in your lap with Patrick Mahomes and a Hall of Fame tight end, Travis Kelce, changes the arithmetic here a bit, changes the chemistry. But in Kansas City, he's a much better coach with clock management. The teams are somewhat more disciplined. And yes, you get Mahomes and Kelce, but he kind of figured it out. It all clicked in. He gets them to the playoffs. They win division titles. He wins not one, not two, but 3 Super Bowls. So it's a tale of two offensive minds that through their first 5, 6, 7 years as head coaches couldn't quite get it figured out. And for one of them, in Mariucci's case, he never really did. And in Andy Reid's case, after 9 or 10 years, he did. And he won a handful of Lombardi trophies. And I sort of feel like Matt LaFleur is in that range. He's a good offensive mind, although the play calling, didn't love it in the third quarter. Didn't love it in the early fourth quarter. Kind of felt like they ran into a wall there again, which happens and has happened in the LaFleur tenure. But what is he? Is he Mariucci, where it's just never going to happen? Or is, if you stick with him for another year or two and this team grows and all the things come together and they're healthy at the right time of year, does it end with him winning a title or a couple of titles? If you feel like you have Andy Reid, you stick with him because you just got to make it through this, and then hopefully they'll come out on the other side with a championship or two. If you feel like you have Mariucci or any other list, I guess, of other great offensive minds who became head coaches who just couldn't hack it as a head coach, then maybe it is time to move on. But that is, to me, the determination that Ed Policy and whoever else is in the room with him, whatever his network is, they have to figure out where LaFleur lies on that. I do feel like if I had to make the choice in the next 2 minutes, I'd probably bring LaFleur back. But it is very out in the open now, my feeling, the conversation that we have talked about a lot this year. What have I said all year? I don't think I'm at a place where I want to fire LaFleur, but it is worth having the conversation that it is a problem now in his 7th year, now done with 7 years, in big games against good teams, in playoff games, and even in regular season games and close games against good teams. This team does not do the small stuff to win games. Think about Saturday. Some of those mistakes didn't determine the game, but Keyshawn Nixon, how many boneheaded plays? He jumps on a pile and cost them 15 yards on a personal foul penalty in a crucial moment of the game when the Bears were building momentum. That doesn't go their way. On the final drive, they call a timeout and then come back and have a delay of game penalty. Or maybe that was the second last drive. Maybe that was the McManus missed 44-yarder. It doesn't matter. You call a timeout, you set the play up, and then you still have a delay of game penalty. These are the kinds of things I've been talking about in close games against good teams that Matt LaFleur coached teams through 7 years just do not do the small stuff consistently enough. We've used this analogy before, but if you're a mid-90s video game fan, Mortal Kombat is the greatest game. I disagree. Donkey Kong is the best game. In the video game Mortal Kombat, when you are going one-on-one with somebody, eventually you get their life meter all the way down, and then what does the voiceover guy say? Finish him. And if you hit the right button combo, you go for this grotesque, gory fatality where you launch somebody into a bed of nails or you uppercut their head off or whatever all the different things were, and you get that blood and guts everywhere. That's the fatality. If you don't hit the right button combo in time and you're trying to finish him, what happens? The guy just falls over. It feels to me like Matt LaFleur does not have the button combo for the fatality in close games against good teams. He is hoping that opponent will just fall over on their own volition and die of natural causes. The difference between the Mortal Kombat video game and real life and an NFL game is that if you let that opponent stagger there, slowly their life force starts to build back up. They don't just fall over like the video game. If you leave them be, they get healthier, they start to believe, they start to fight back, and he just doesn't seem like he has that killer instinct. I had a buddy that texted me at one point that said, as it relates to LaFleur, smelling a victory, I think was his corollary. He can't smell a victory, and then he said he can't smell shit in a manure factory. I thought that was a pretty good one. But that is true. He just lacks that killer instinct, and it feels like more often than not in games like Saturday, Matt LaFleur, when he has a big lead or has a lead in a game like that, he plays not to lose. He does not play to win. He wants that opponent to fall over. He doesn't want to uppercut their head off into a spike above the screen. And that is a problem, and it has been consistently been a problem in 7 years. Just look at those early drives in the third quarter. I guess I can excuse the first 3 and out because the Bears did make adjustments defensively. They brought a bunch of different blitzes, and okay, fine. They hold you to 3 and out. But then the next 3 and out, and the next drive where you only get 1 first down, and the fourth drive, 4 drives in the second half. The first 4 drives of the second half yielded 1 first down, when in the first half, you moved the ball with impunity and scored 3 touchdowns and should have scored 3 touchdowns and a field goal before the half if McAnus doesn't miss that 55-yarder. The first 3 and out, I can kind of stomach. But then after that, you have got to be better. It really did feel like they were in run-the-clock-out mode with 10 minutes in the third quarter. My man, you're on the road. It's the playoffs. The crowd's getting back into it. You've got a team that won 6 games where they've trailed in the fourth quarter or later, or late in the fourth quarter during the regular season. This team believes they can still win this game. You have to go for their throat. You have to kill them. And it felt like we were in run-the-clock-out mode when it was 21-9 with 11 minutes left in the game. You've got to get aggressive and play the game. You've got to play Herman Edwards. You play to win the game. You don't play to lose the game or to avoid losing the game. But that, to me, is the biggest thing. If they bring him back, and it looks like they're going to, that he's got to figure out. And if he doesn't figure it out next year, I mean, how many years are we going to do this? I guess if it's Andy Reid. How many years? Let me just take a look at the Andy Reid wiki. Was it a decade in Philadelphia? And then ultimately he started to lose in Philly, and I think that's why he got fired. What's the coaching record? Holy moly. Reid has an extent. Okay, so he went to Philly in 99, so he spent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years in Philly. He had a .590 winning percentage. He went to 5 NFC championship games, 3 wild card games, and a divisional round game and a Super Bowl, and just never quite got over the hump. Then he went to Kansas, so that's 14 years. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. He won a Super Bowl in his 20th year, and then he won 3 in 5 years. So are we going to hang on to Matt LaFleur for 13 more years before he finally gets over the hump? Here's a question. Here's a podcast hypothetical. Here's a podcast question. If you knew that after 13 years, Matt LaFleur was going to win a title, yeah, you stick with him, right? If it's a guarantee, so in the year 2039, so they're going to give him a contract extension today or tomorrow. That means he'll probably get at least 2 more. And whatever happens, they win games, they win divisions, they make the playoffs, they lose heartbreakers, they're out in the playoffs. But we know it. We know in 2039, if they stick with LaFleur, he's going to win a title. Do you go with that? Do you go with then? What would that be? A 29-year drought of a Super Bowl title from 2010? I think I'd take it. If it's a guarantee, if you're getting a guaranteed Super Bowl, you've got to take it. But that, to me, going back to that Mooch Reid question, is what you have to figure out. Is Matt LaFleur going to figure this out? Are his teams magically going to get more disciplined? Is he going to be a better head coach in these games and have more of a killer instinct or not? And through 7 years, we just haven't seen it. A ton of regular season wins, some division titles, a couple of NFC championship game appearances, but in those close games against good teams, just not nearly consistent enough. You know what he is? I would use this comparison too. I would say Matt LaFleur is a really good cook. And a really good cook will make you an awesome meal, a solid meal, a 7 out of 10, a 7.5 out of 10, an 8 out of 10. If you go to a really good cook's restaurant, you're going to have a way better meal more often than not. Sometimes you'll have a clunker, that happens. But if you went there every night over the course of an entire year, you'd have a lot of good meals. Would you have a 10 out of 10 meal? Probably not. But you would have a lot of 7 out of 10s, a lot of 7.5 out of 10s, a lot of 8 out of 10s. What we need Matt LaFleur to figure out is how to become a chef. Because a cook, you can be a little lackadaisical. You can say, I'll do a pinch of this, throw a little bit of that in there. And if you have an idea of flavor profiles and combos, you can probably figure out a way to make a meal that tastes good more often than not. But a chef, like the TV show The Bear, a chef requires precision. It requires having things down to 100th of an ounce or whatever when you're talking about ingredients and presentation. It's more of a science. You've got to be perfect. You're not getting a Beard Award or a Michelin star for a really good cook. A chef gets a James Beard Award or article. A chef gets a Michelin star or 2. You need a chef. And Matt LaFleur right now is a really good cook. But can he get the training? Can a really good cook turn into a chef? It has happened. Andy Reid. But is that something we feel like that Matt LaFleur can add to his repertoire here? He's a really good cook, a lot of good meals. Most Sundays we're having a good meal in the Matt LaFleur era. But when we get to a point where you're up for the Michelin star, a really good meal doesn't cut it. It has to be a top-tier meal, a once-in-a-lifetime meal, and he doesn't have that precision yet. And we're through 7 years, and the question is, will he be able to develop it? We don't know. But that's where we're at. It does sound like Matt LaFleur is going to be back, and they're going to work out some kind of contract here in the next couple of weeks. He did say, now he talked to the media on Saturday, or on Sunday, and he said that he wants to be here. It's a privilege to be here, and up and down the road. And he did say, they asked him about Rich Bisaccia. You have to fire Rich Bisaccia, right? What possible explanation could Matt LaFleur give for keeping Rich Bisaccia with what the special teams have been? It was a masterclass on Saturday. You had Brandon McManus miss 3 kicks, cost you 7 points. You lost the game by 4. Your kicker left 7 points on the board. On top of that, you allowed 2 decent returns. You had 2 penalties. It's just, how long are we going to do this? And you're going to continue to pay him to be the highest paid special teams coach in the league. They asked him about Bisaccia. He deferred, but he didn't say anything definitive one way or the other. What he did say definitively was when asked about Jeff Hafley, defensive coordinator, whose defense, by the way, gave up 25 fourth-quarter points and has not been great since Micah Parsons went down. Yes, they were a fringe top 5 defense last year without Micah Parsons. They were the number 5 defense in the league this year when Micah Parsons went down. They ended the year the 13th ranked defense, and then we saw what we saw Saturday, and you give up 25 fourth-quarter points in an epic collapse where you lose 31-27. But even with that drop-off, because of what he did in year 1 and for most of year 2 and the way that he leads guys and the interactions with the media, it seems like a mortal lock he's going to get a head coaching job. And Matt LaFleur as much said that Sunday. He said his expectation is that Jeff Hafley is going to be a head coach elsewhere in 2026, and they're going to have to find a replacement for him on the defensive side of the football. But that is all going to be a part of the conversation this week. My guess is policy wants this done, though. You want to get to the offseason and figure out what the plan is in the offseason. And look, when policy speaks with the media, which I think he will at some point, he is going to bring up injuries. And I don't think it's an excuse. That's an explanation. To me, that's an explanation. There are excuses and there are explanations. An excuse is if it's a lot of lower-tier players that are hurt, and you say, oh, we had a lot of injuries. When you look at the names that went down, Tucker Kraft and Micah Parsons are 2 of the 4 best players on the team. Micah Parsons probably is the best player or the biggest field-tilting player on the team. And you lost him for the year. You lost Kraft for the year. Elton Jenkins wasn't great at center, but you lost him for the year. You lost Devontae Wyatt for the year. In the game on Saturday, you lost Edgerrin Cooper, and he was having a hell of a game on Saturday. He was all over the field. It didn't feel like he took that sophomore leap the way we wanted him to, but that version of Cooper, the one we saw until he got hurt Saturday, was the best version of Cooper we have really seen since last year, and you lose him. There are excuses and explanations, and my feeling is with the caliber of player that went down, and not just for a couple of weeks, for the remainder of the season, it is more of an explanation than an excuse. And my guess is Ed Policy, when he is asked why he decided to give a contract extension to LaFleur, and I would expect then to Goody as well, which maybe we can have a conversation about Goody on a different day. It feels like today is more about the aftermath of Saturday and specifically LaFleur. But there are some fans out there that also feel like Goody is flying under the radar here in terms of blame pie, in terms of baked Alaska blame pie. But he has not been talked about as much. But you're likely going to get an extension for both of them. And my feeling is Ed Policy, when he is giving his validation for that, is going to say, look, They were 9-3-1 in Denver. You lose Parsons. You lost Kraft the week before. Significant injuries cost what could have been a 12-win year, a 13-win year, maybe a 1 seed. Maybe that game then Saturday is at Lambeau, and it's a different story, and you don't have the crowd behind the Bears the way that they were Saturday night. So he's going to give all of that as explanations as to why he's probably going to do what is going to be done either today or tomorrow. Now, I want to talk real quickly about the Bears. You got to tip your cap. I hate to do it. They rally again. Caleb wasn't good, but he dropped that dime in there on 4th and 8, his biggest play of the game. Ben Johnson, I don't know what's going on with this guy. My feeling always is to the victor go the spoils. So he had this moment in the locker room. Here, I'll play it for you since we've been dropping some language anyway. He got into the locker room, and he's kind of become known this year for his locker room conversations with the team after wins. And he got into the locker room and said, bleep the Packers. He says, bleep the Packers, bleep them, I hate them. And you saw a lot of Packer fans saying, oh, real classy. And you even saw Dick Vitale, had a whole post on it on Twitter on Sunday about how classless it was. I don't know, man. It's a rivalry, and when you win a game like that, I don't know how much we can chirp when you're the fan of the team that lost that game. He also did say this in his post-game presser. I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe the Halfley clip we played on Friday?
There was probably a little bit more noise coming out of their building up north to start the week, which we heard loud and clear, players and coaches alike. So this one meant something to us.
I don't know what he's talking about. He has to be talking about that Halfley clip, right? Where Halfley, we played that on Friday, where he said, we're not going to be done. We'll see you next week, and he slams the podium. That has to be it.
There was probably a little bit more noise coming out of their building up north to start the week, which we heard loud and clear, players and coaches alike. So this one meant something to us.
I don't know. I feel like Ben Johnson is trying very hard to be Dan Campbell and to be that brash alpha. I don't know that that's really him. I think he's kind of playing a character there, but whatever. A lot of Packer fans, some sports fans in general, didn't like the way he shook LaFleur's hand at it, didn't like the way he conducted himself in the postgame, didn't like that he said bleep the Packers. But in my world, or in my mind, I guess, if you beat your hated rival and you come back the way they did again after you did it to him in Week 16, to the victor go the spoils. Talk your trash if you want to talk your trash. I forgot I saved this clip. I have to play this for you real quick. Oh, here's Brandon. You want to hear Brandon McManus talk about how bad he is? Here.
Yeah, it's emotional. It's disappointing that my role in the team is to make kicks, and these guys pour in, thousands of plays over the course of the season, and I leave 7 points on the board today. So, like I said, most disappointing part of my career ever.
Got to move on from him, right? Right? You have to. The most frustrating thing about that is something we talked about when he was going through his rough patch in the middle of the year when people were calling him McAnus, and it felt like the hashtag McAnus had subsided, and now it's back. It felt like we finally had a guy, and it's kind of like Halfley, where it feels like we finally have a defensive coordinator. Now he's going to move on. Different outcomes where Halfley's going to move on to bigger and better things, and McManus probably isn't, but it felt like we finally had a kicker in the post-Crosby era after the Carlson and the Narvison, the Narv dog, and who was the guy? Greg Joseph from Minnesota, and all the different guys they tried that didn't work out. Last year, he goes 20 for 21. He did miss that kick in the wild card round in Philly. It didn't get talked about a lot because ultimately it didn't impact a game where he lost 22-10. So when you add that in, he was 20 of 22 last year. Still really good. Veteran kicker. He gave him the 3-year contract extension. It felt like they finally had some stability there for the first time since Crosby. And then he gets hurt, and he has the rough patch middle of the year. Then he kind of got his act together, and then you have that on Saturday where you leave, as he said, 7 points on the board. You got to move on from him, right? So now we're searching for a kicker again. Do you bring back the substitute teacher, Haversick? He made all those kicks. Then he had a rough day in New York when McManus couldn't go in the swirling wind at Giants Stadium or at MetLife Field. And then after that, he was back on the practice squad. Then do you bring him back in? Do you sign him today just to have him on the roster? Now it feels like we're looking for a kicker again. But here is former Packer James Jones, who works for the Packers, by the way. He's actually employed by the Packers. After the loss Saturday, see, this is why I didn't get on social media and do stuff right away. Even though I still felt like firing everybody Sunday. James Jones was doing a postgame, and he said, and I think the actual quote you'll hear here is that, I don't know how you let Matt LaFleur back in the room.
After this game, they were supposed to meet about a contract extension. I don't know how you still have that meeting and you talk about an extension. LaFleur is my dog. LaFleur is a heck of a head coach. Since he came in there, he won game. But the way the Packers have finished the last couple years, losing so many close games, you get into the playoffs. At halftime, you have a 21-3 lead.
Check.
Not against a team that's better than you. Against a team that you are better than.
Check.
You wasn't playing the champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. You wasn't playing the Patty Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs. You was playing Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears and Ben Johnson's first season, that a team that you are better than, and you give up a 21-3 lead at the half. It's going to be a different conversation.
Yeah.
I think Coach LaFleur, his seat just got real hot on that bus.
Yeah.
As he's getting on that bus right now, his seat just got real hot. When Goody talked to him at that meeting, I don't know how you let him walk back in the room.
Pretty big statement by James Jones. Now, again, that was 48 hours ago, and per the reporting we're seeing from all the national writers, it sounds like they are on their way to getting the pens out and signing the contract extension. But that's how James Jones was feeling after that game Saturday night. So, Packer season comes to an end, and now, you got to figure out what you're going to do with him. Like I said, I figure if you're going to give LaFleur a contract extension, you're probably going to give Goody a contract extension. He is also in the second to last year of his deal. We may talk more about him on Wednesday. By the way, just to reset, I am off on Thursday, Friday, so it will be a Wednesday. Our Friday podcast will be on Wednesday this week. Maybe we can dive more into that, because I was reading from some fans, not a lot, because most of the blame, McManus, Bisaccia, LaFleur, some blame Jordan Love. Like I said in the teaser, or maybe at the beginning of the podcast, I still had people, when I finally posted on Facebook on Sunday, I still had a couple of people saying Jordan Love's not the guy, and Love is a part of the reason they lost the game. The whole offense was bad in the third quarter, but to me, it was primarily LaFleur's play calling and disgusting offensive line play. I don't know how you look at Jordan Love's game. 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. You mean to tell me you watched Saturday night's game? You saw the play calling turtle in the third quarter. You saw the offensive line implode on itself like a dying star in the third and early fourth quarter. You saw the defense give up 25 points in the fourth quarter. You saw the kicker miss 2 field goals and an extra point and leave 7 points on the board in a game where he lost by 4. You saw all of that, and you're deciding to point to the guy who threw for 4 touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over, and had a quarterback rating of 104, and you're saying that's the guy, that's the reason? I had somebody in the comment section say, the 2 intentional groundings and the delay of game, how can you recover from that? Is this serious? You saw all of that on Saturday, and your conclusion is the guy who threw for 4 touchdowns and didn't turn the ball over and far outplayed Caleb Williams, that he's the reason? I couldn't wrap my mind around that. But there was a lot of blame going around, and like we said, Goody kind of flies under the radar. But I did see some people that, especially with the injury conversation, said, well, isn't it the GM's job to make sure you have better depth? And I guess I agree with that to a point, but when you're on third stringers, or in some cases fourth stringers, I don't know what you can reasonably expect at that point, but that is more of a GM conversation. And it did kind of feel like, in terms of just Saturday, Goody was avoiding a lot of the fire from Packer Twitter, but maybe he shouldn't be. But if LaFleur is going to sign a contract extension, it would be stunning if Goody did not. I do wonder if Ed Policy, or if this franchise will ever go back to the original format that they had under Bob Harlan, where the GM is in control of who the head coach is or not. Now, that would be interesting and a different wrinkle if Goody were actually in charge of that. Because remember, Mark Murphy changed the structure of the leadership, and he became the guy in charge of hiring and firing the head coach, and hiring and firing the GM. The typical power structure in any NFL or any sports team, really, is that the GM has the power to hire or fire, and then hire the next guy, the next head coach that's going to coach the players that he is giving him through trades, through the draft, etc. I do wonder if at some point Ed Policy will want to go back to that and give the GM the power over the coach, but right now that is the president's job. But if he's going to give LaFleur a contract extension, I can't imagine you wouldn't be giving Goody a contract extension as well. Maybe we can dive more into that on Wednesday, because I did see some people breaking down every draft class under Goody, and I got to tell you, there aren't a whole hell of a lot of players that are still around this team because of those draft classes. Now, the more recent ones look okay. Lucas Van Ness actually played a pretty good game on Saturday. I thought Jordan Morgan, who got the start over Zach Tom, we haven't even talked about that. That was something we discussed on Friday. That was the biggest injury to watch out for. It turns out that your best offensive lineman, your right tackle, Zach Tom, who you gave a boatload of money to in the offseason, he could not go. Probably means he's dealing with a fairly serious knee injury. Jordan Morgan then had to start at right tackle. He was great. He only gave up one pressure on the night. And the offensive line, while it wasn't good in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, he was actually rock solid. So he had a good game. Van Ness had a good game. And Matthew Golden. That might be, in addition to the love numbers, that might be the silver lining of the game was the touchdown by Golden, 4 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. So more recent, especially recent first-round picks were fairly productive Saturday. Maybe that generates some positivity toward Goody. But I did see some draft breakdown of every draft from 2018 through last year, and there are not a lot of players having an impact on this team. And that does speak to maybe the lack of depth this team has. Yeah, Matthew Golden was a bright spot. Romeo Doubs, you think he's done? They have 21 players who have expiring contracts at the end of the year, which is where we're at now. I don't think Romeo Doubs is back, but he had a really good game. 8 catches, 124 yards, and a touchdown in a playoff game. Reed was pretty good, 4 for 43 and a touchdown. Watson had 3 for 36 and a touchdown. Almost had 2 touchdowns if he could have hung on to that ball where he leapt over a defender to score that touchdown. I wonder about Romeo Doubs. That's a big one heading into the offseason. Running game kind of fell apart. Jacobs looked excellent early. Looked like 2024 Josh Jacobs had a spring in his step after having a couple of weeks off. And then in the second half, I don't think he picked up more than a yard. Honest to God, did Josh Jacobs pick up more than a yard or 2 on any carry in the second half? Bears adjusted to that beautifully, and the running game was stonewalled for the remainder of the night. The Packers have a lot of decisions to make as it relates to many players. 21 players with expiring contracts now as they head into the offseason. But a lot to go over. The first domino that has to fall, which I think will be finalized either today or tomorrow, will be the Matt LaFleur contract extension. Now, let's take a lap through the NFL. We went 2-1 on our gambling picks, by the way. We had Indiana cover. We had the Packers to cover. That would have given us a 3-0 week. I thought 21-3, even when it was 21-9 in the fourth quarter, I thought there's no way we're not getting the Packer win and the Packer cover. So we got the Indiana cover. They look like, who's going to stop them? Who's the last team now standing? It's going to be Indiana and Miami in the college football national championship game. Indiana just about scored 60 on Oregon in that semifinal game. There's no way, barring injury, catastrophic injury in the first quarter to Mendoza or something, there's no way that team isn't winning the national title in 1 week. We got a cover from them. We got a cover from New England last night, and we missed on the Packers. So we're 2-1 gambling pick-wise, which means we are now, when you add in the futures and you add in the 2-1 week last week, we are now 43-36-3, 7 units up. And we still have that outstanding ticket on both Ben Johnson and Vrabel to win Coach of the Year at either 7-1 or 6-1. So we're sitting pretty good right now. Otherwise, the Rams had to rally, 10-point favorites in Carolina. Got a late fourth quarter touchdown to win that one, 34-31. How about the Bills? Got a late touchdown from Josh Allen, who got knocked around on Sunday, and then got a pick to seal it. They beat Jacksonville. Really good game. It was actually a very entertaining wildcard weekend, if it weren't for the way the Packers lost. Bills win 27-24. Niners upset the Eagles after they win the Super Bowl last year. Feels like a lot of discord with A.J. Brown and Sirianni in the locker room there. Niners win, banged up Niners. That is one argument I heard, too, over the weekend where you talk about the injury excuse for the Packers. Some people are saying, well, look at the Niners. They lost half their defense, and they continue to win. They won 12 games. They won a playoff game. All right, that's fair. They beat the Eagles 23-19. Why are you screaming at me? That's fair. And the Patriots dominate defensively over the Chargers 16-3 last night. Now, tonight, we get Aaron Rodgers. And I'm all in now on the Aaron Rodgers train. I am going to be rooting for Rodgers tonight the way I would root for him if he was wearing a Packer jersey. They are at home with the Texans. Texans are 3-point road favorites. That is 7:15 tonight. So the division round, which we'll go over more of on Wednesday, Bills-Broncos on Saturday. Times are all TBD. Bills-Broncos Saturday. Niners-Seahawks, third matchup of the year. They split the 2 regular season matchups. Then on Sunday, we get Rams and Bears. I think the Rams are going to win this game handily. And then you get the winner of tonight's game that'll be at New England. That'll be on Sunday late afternoon. But that's how things line up for division round weekend. Now, let's talk real quickly before we get out for today Let's talk on some basketball. Badger basketball. What a win on Saturday. Like I said, I was working Saturday afternoon. I was calling a couple games. I was watching the end of the Badger game as I was calling a game on Saturday. They beat number 2 Michigan. Michigan 14-0 going into Saturday. Badgers go to Michigan and win 91-88. The Fire Guard crew, which was out in force with the way this year has gone, was very quiet on Saturday. You got another tremendous day from that backcourt. Blackwell had 26. Boyd had 22. I know they have some defensive deficiencies, specifically Nick Boyd. He is not the defender Tanjay was last year, but he is a guy who can score. They get 48 combined from those two guys. Boyd is averaging 20 points a game. You have filled the Boyd void, the Tanjay void, Boyd, something in there rhyming-wise. I'll get it. But you did fill that Tanjay scoring void with Boyd. There it is. You filled the void with Boyd. One thing they don't have, though, Tanjay was a two-way player. Tanjay was a good on-ball defender, too, and Boyd has not been that this year. Not to say he can't still be, but you've got a dynamic scoring backcourt with Blackwell and Boyd. And then Bielauskas gave you 17 points. He got 12 off the bench from Braden Carrington. He doesn't get a lot of playing time, but I like it every time he's out there. He played 27 minutes, and you get a 91-88 win. That is arguably the biggest win for any college basketball team this year. Badgers come out of that game 11-5, 3-2. That is the kind of win, too, where, I mean, you can't be hovering around 500 at the end of the year, but let's say the Badgers finish 19-13 or 18-12 or whatever it would be. That's the kind of win that boosts you so much. That could carry you into an NCAA tournament spot if you're just sort of meandering for the rest of the year. You may go back and look at that and say, yeah, but they beat number 2 Michigan on the road. And that also depends on what Michigan does the rest of the year. But a very big win for Greg Gard and the crew. They are at Minnesota on Tuesday. Minnesota not having a bad year. They are 10-6, 3-10. Badgers 11-5, 3-10 or 3-2. That'll be 6 o'clock tomorrow night. And then what's the next big matchup? They've got Rutgers at home on Saturday. It's full-on college hoops now. It's every couple of games every week. But at Minnesota Tuesday, home against Rutgers on Saturday. But what a win for the Badgers. Marquette lost again. Tight game to Villanova. Just a gross year. 6-11, 1-5 in conference play after losing at home by 3 to Villanova on Saturday. And this is not the Villanova of 5 or 6 years ago, and certainly not of 10 or 15 years ago. I know a lot of my Badger friends are crying tears over Marquette being bad this year. They are bad. 6-11, 1-5. They are at St. John's on Tuesday. What is St. John's? They are 11-5, 4-1. That'll be another loss. Yeah, it's going to be bad. Marquette might only win 3 or 4 conference games, honest to God. UW Green Bay with Doug Gottlieb. They won last night. They've won 4 in a row. I got to say, a lot of raised eyebrows when Gottlieb went to Green Bay, and then he goes out and wins 4 games last year in 2 conference games? I think they finished 4-28, and he was still doing the radio show. Now, he quit the radio show halfway through this year and said he wanted to focus on Phoenix basketball, and they had already been playing better when he quit, but since then, I think they're 6-1 since he quit. And it kind of feels like they got it going on a little bit. They've won 4 games in a row. They're 5-2 in conference play, 10-8 overall. I know not everybody cares about Horizon League basketball, but I don't know what to tell you. The Packers are done, and we're 30 days away from spring training. So I don't know what to tell you. We're going to talk a little Horizon League basketball. I kind of want them to win the Horizon League and make the tournament just for the entertainment factor of Gottlieb coaching a team in the NCAA tournament. They're rolling right now. They are 10-8, 5-2 in Horizon League play. They're back on the floor on Thursday. How about, too, by the way, during that, I know we just mentioned spring training. During the Packer-Bear game, the news broke that the Cubs were signing all-star third baseman Alex Bregman. Just a brutal night. Just a really brutal night. Cubs had been really quiet this offseason, and they make that move. Now, Bregman isn't the Bregman of Houston. It's not like he was when he was in the Astros days. He had 1 year in Boston last year. Pretty good year. Hit 260. He's a great defensive third baseman, but I could have done without that. As the Bears are coming back and the Packers are on tilt, and then all of a sudden the Cubs from the clouds are signing a big third baseman to a 5-year deal. Well, yeah, Green Bay basketball back on the floor on Thursday. And then we'll talk very quickly about the Bucks. One of the wins of the year on Friday night. See, this is what I mean. My weekend was going so well. I stayed up. They did not tip off that game on Friday in LA against the Lakers until 9:30. So my wife and I think, watched the final episode of Stranger Things on Friday night, right before that game tipped off. It was fine. Kind of what you expected, right? I know not everybody was happy with the ending. We won't spoil it for you. We watched that. Then I turn on the Bucks-Lakers game, and my intention was to only watch a little bit of it, but then they were playing so well, and the game was close, and they were close at halftime. I said, I'm going to watch a little bit of the third quarter. Then that's close. So you get down the stretch run. Bucks have the lead, and in the final minute, Giannis has a block of LeBron, and then he steals one from LeBron, and that seals it. Both in the final minute, and the Bucks win 105-101. LeBron played, Luka played. That was just about a fully healthy Laker team. No Austin Reeves. But that 105-101 win and the way it ended, the way Giannis defended 41-year-old LeBron, I get he's 41, but still, that was an exciting end. And they get out of that game 17-21, and I'm thinking, all right, that's kind of one of the wins of the year in what has been an unfulfilling year so far that has just been pockmarked by Giannis rumors the whole time. So you get that news out of the loss Wednesday that Giannis wants to be here for the rest of his life. I'm going to retire here and blah, 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 all that stuff we talked about on Friday. Then you go get a win in L.A. That was impressive. And then last night, they just can't sustain it. They're in Denver. Denver is a difficult place to play. They won a title. They won the title the year after the Bucks did. A lot of that core is still there, but they're hurt. They were missing 4 starters last night. The Nuggets were missing 4 starters in that game. So going into it, I'm thinking as a Bucks fan, you got kind of an unexpected win at LA on Friday. Now, if you can just beat the Nuggets B team, we're talking about a 3-1 West Coast trip. That's not too shabby. And they go out there and just don't play consistent all night and lose to the Nuggets B team. Literally the Nuggets G League team they lose to last night. Bucks were down at halftime. They had a lead third quarter. They took Giannis out. They immediately got down by 10. Then he came back. He got him back in the game fourth quarter. They were down 105-102 with the ball and had a possession that left a little to be desired, where they ended up with basically three air balls, got a couple of offensive rebounds, but they essentially clanged 3 potential game-tying threes. Giannis never touched the ball somehow, and you end up losing 108-104. So you had the chance for a 3-1 West Coast trip, and all you had to do was beat a team with no Nikola Jokic, no Michael Porter, 4 starters out, as I said, and you lose that one 108-104. So they go 2-2 on the West Coast trip. They are 17-22. Not great. And by the way, I saw some Bucks page I follow on Twitter, Bucks Lead or whatever it is. When you go by strength of schedule, the Bucks have played the 3rd easiest schedule so far of any team in the NBA. Their strength of schedule ranks 27th out of 30 teams. So you are right now 17-22, 5 games under 500. And yes, you've had Giannis injuries, you've had Kevin Porter injuries. Obviously, the Giannis injuries were big and the amount of time he missed. But you have played the 3rd easiest schedule in the NBA, and you are 17-22. Woof. Some things are going to have to change before the deadline. I hope John Horst has a rabbit in his hat somewhere, some Houdini. They are at home with Minnesota, a 26-14 Timberwolf team on Tuesday. Then you go to San Antonio on Thursday and have to deal with Wemby before you're back on the road at Atlanta on Martin Luther King Day. No Trae Young now in Atlanta, but that might make them better. Then you're home with OKC, defending champions, best team in the league. You're home with Denver. I would think Jokic is going to be back by that point, so you've got a lot of tough games because, like I said, you've played a pretty easy schedule so far in your 5 games under 500. So Minnesota at Fiserv Forum on Tuesday. I might go to that game. The tickets are cheap. 7 o'clock tip time on Tuesday. That'll do it for us here. Like I said, I've got off Thursday, Friday, so I will be back with you on Wednesday. There's an email, a Packer email that I want to dive into that we had already before Saturday's game, a hypothetical that doesn't really relate to this year, especially now in the aftermath of what happened. I want to dive into that. Maybe we dive in more to the Goody conversation. I think we're going to have the LaFleur extension by the time we record on Wednesday. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Badger game Tuesday, the Bucks game on Tuesday. We'll get after it Wednesday. Have a happy, safe couple of days. We'll chat with you then.